Hello and welcome. You're watching this special broadcast, Living Long and Healthy with COVID Vaccination. I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor, and this is a show in which we take a lot of the viewer questions, take it to experts and have them answer all your queries. Very delighted to have on the program today Dr. R. Ajay Kumar. He's a consultant cardiologist at the Cosmopolitan Hospital in Trivandrum. Thank you for your time. Doctor, we also have Dr. M. R. Varun Kumar. He's a consultant adult and pediatric endocrinologist at the Villamal Medical College in Madurai. Thank you for your time as well. I want to begin by putting in a question to Dr. Ajay Kumar. We're talking at a time, Doc, when the importance of vaccine has really come to the forefront. Second wave has hit us, and the only way out at the moment is vaccinate, vaccinate, vaccinate. But the important thing also is to understand how long actually it takes for the vaccine to set in the body and be at its absolute effectiveness.
That is a very good question and a very relevant one. Actually, we are having the second wave. The second wave started very long back in other countries. It is a little late in our country. We were expecting it now. So now we have started the vaccination program in a very big way, and this is the second stage of the vaccination for the general public going on. We use two types of vaccine in India. One is the Covishield vaccine from Oxford AstraZeneca, and the other one is the Covaxin, that is from Bharat Biotech. Both these vaccines actually give you full vaccination after 2 weeks of the second dose. So ideally the time difference between the first dose and the second dose should be 6 to 8 weeks. So that is around 1.5 to 2 months gap should be there. Initially it was 1 month.
Only for Covishield, right? Like that's the difference really that people need to understand, that the Covishield is what is said to be, if you take it after the period of 6 to 8 weeks, that's when it's supposed to have maximum efficacy. For Covaxin, it's still about 28 days. So people need to remember that.
And that too, if you take it in the proper timing, you get the maximum benefit. Actually, Covishield, they say more than 70% of the people get the benefit, and for Covaxin, it is around 81 to 82%. So if you take Covishield from the first dose, it is something like 2 to 2.5 months. And for Covaxin, it will be around 1.5 months to get the full vaccination effect.
Dr. Varun Kumar can answer that really. A lot of people have this misconception that getting a vaccine is like getting a protection. They think that once they've taken both the doses, they can't get COVID-19, which actually is not true. Could you specify that and how actually it works for our viewers?
Yes, ma'am. It's a wonderful point to be noted. The moment we start vaccinating an individual, like, the first dose and second dose, our body tries to produce the antibodies against the vaccine antigen, that is the viral antigen. So the antigen that we are trying to target is the spike protein, that is the binding protein with which the virus gets attached to the cells. So the moment the vaccine is being administered, there will be a lag time between the development of antibodies and the full response from the individual. So this lag time is highly vulnerable for the patient to develop a new COVID infection. And as Sir has told previously, only around 70 and 80% of the people, percentage are protected by the use of either Covishield or Covaxin that is rightly available right now. There are vaccines that are being developed that can have up to 100% efficacy, but it is not available in the market as of now. So the tool with which we have right now is always a preventive measures additional to the vaccination.
Dr. Ajay Kumar can take that really. We've seen a bit of hesitancy in people thinking, oh, should I not? You know, I've just had a stent put or I've just undergone a heart surgery. Is it safe for me to take it? What do you tell those patients?
Definitely. The cardiac patients should know clearly that the mortality and morbidity of cardiac patients who get the COVID infection, and usually if they get admitted, it much higher than any other disease, even renal failure, kidney failure who are on dialysis, or people with cancer, or people with other kinds of diseases. But if you see the mortality and morbidity, which affects the cardiac patients, is much higher. If you see the trials, big trials which have been conducted in US in the early period of COVID, that is in January to May of 2020, there's a huge trial which was conducted among more than 14,000 patients who were admitted in hospitals, and they found out that 10% mortality was observed in the US population with known cardiovascular diseases in the general population. And if you see the in-hospital mortality, it was as high as 25 to 38% among the cardiovascular disease patients. If you see coronary disease patients who had heart attacks or stents, as you said, or even bypass surgeries, they had a 25% mortality in hospital COVID patients. And in heart failure, it was much higher. It was almost 38%. So if you see the cardiac patients, they die if they are admitted with COVID, much higher than any other group of patients. And among the patients who are admitted just with COVID, with other like pneumonia or other conditions, if a small person got a stroke, that is 1.5% got stroke and almost 5% got heart attack inside the hospital. But if you look at them, almost 56% of them died in the hospital. So if you get a heart attack or stroke with COVID, you are most likely that one among two will die in the hospital. So that is the severity of disease progression and mortality among the cardiovascular disease patients. So that's why we are insisting that cardiovascular disease patients should always get vaccinated.
Next question to Dr. Varun Kumar really. Doc, we've seen a trend emerge, at least in the early days of COVID-19, that women were somehow contracting the virus a little less.
Absolutely. The initial part of the infection, there was a high incidence of infection among the male. But now once the studies have come out, the epidemiology says that both the sexes, both male and female, are equally affected by the infection. When you look into the severity of the infection, the women are getting infected with an equally severe part of, and they are getting complicated as well. When you look into the women as a whole, they are getting stressed, they are getting much more vulnerable. One is because they have a poor diabetic control, they have a poor weight control, they have poor psychosocial support along with an economic burden altogether. So everything adds on to the misery of the problem as such, as a whole. So when you look into the overall rate of complications, particularly for women, the heart disease related to the COVID are very high. Though they are infected less initially, now we have clearly shown that the incidence of heart disease is higher and higher with in women, particularly in obese women.
Let me come back to Dr. Ajay Kumar. Since we last spoke about heart conditions and cardiovascular diseases, any sort of side effects that you have noticed in people with weaker hearts or with a heart condition that they face once they get the vaccine?
Actually, the common and mild to moderate side effects are the same among the cardiovascular disease patients compared to any other population. If you look at serious side effects, India has much less compared to the Western or the other populations. Maybe because we are exposed to many kinds of viruses in our community. But if you look at that, the thrombotic complications like the deep vein thrombosis of the legs or coronary thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, stroke, these are the serious complications which can occur in the cardiovascular arena. And these are actually less in the cardiac patients because almost all of them will be on cardiac drugs like aspirin and antiplatelet agents, statins and vasodilators. So they are little more protected from the serious side effects of thrombosis. So, like everyone, cardiovascular disease patients also need to avoid dehydration after vaccination. That is the first and foremost thing you should tell the general public, because dehydration stimulates thrombosis. Because if you see the disease and the virus itself, the antigen itself, as well as the antigen which we give as the vaccine, both of them actually changes our body status to a pro-thrombotic status. Meaning our body is always in an equilibrium between thrombosis and the systems which work against thrombosis. So usually this antigen is now proven beyond doubt of pushing the body into a status where the thrombotic process is actually stimulated by the virus as well as the vaccine. So because we are giving the antigen as the vaccine, it also has this effect. So that's why we have to prevent dehydration. Smokers should definitely be not smoking. Any kind of substance abuse has to be stopped during the vaccination period. And thrombotic events are much higher. We are seeing a lot of patients with COVID infection as well as after the vaccination having deep vein thrombosis of the lower limbs and then going into pulmonary embolism. So that's why certain serious complications have to be, everyone should know that, and they should prevent such kind of things during the post-vaccination, that is the 2 weeks after vaccination.
Right. So that you and your doctor both are well aware about what might the complication, if at all, might be, but that should not be discouraging anyone from going and taking the vaccine at all. Our appeal constantly on NDTV has been to tell people, please vaccinate, vaccinate, vaccinate. Whenever your turn comes, go and get that. We leave you with that thought into a quick break, coming back with much more. Welcome back. You're watching our special broadcast where we are taking in a lot of viewer questions and taking it to experts and getting you some much valuable knowledge. Let's go back to our panel now and try and get in some more answers. And I'd like to bring in Dr. Varun Kumar now. Dr. Kumar, in the second wave, one of the biggest trends we saw were actually that young adults and even kids were getting infected. Kids who do not have very high immunity per se, but they were landing up in hospitals as well. Now, are there any vaccines so far for children? We understand there is one under being considered in the UK, and this is Oxford AstraZeneca, of course. But are there other vaccines for children, and is it safe for them to take the COVID-19 vaccine whenever it comes?
Yes, absolutely. When you look into the children particularly, the severity of disease is not much reported compared to the adult population. Again, the complication rates were but bit on the lesser side compared to the adults. But looking into this, it's not reinforcing to avoid vaccination, but it always the vulnerable population at high risk, particularly children who have parents suffering from COVID, or they are into school or into public places where the exposure is higher, they are need to be vaccinated. That is going to prevent their infection as such. Coming to the vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine has been shown to have effectiveness between 6 to 17 years. That has been done in both UK and US. Lately, the Oxford vaccine has been put on pause because there were reports of blood clots that were occurring because of the Oxford vaccine, but soon it will be cleared, after which the real data will come out of for this study. But as of now, the Pfizer vaccine is safe and effective even in children between 16 to 17 years of age.
Let me go back to Dr. Ajay Kumar. And Dr. Kumar, we spoke about people with heart diseases, hypertension as well. But a lot of questions come in from viewers trying to understand, what if I have uncontrollable, say, hypertension? If my blood pressure is constantly fluctuating, is it safe for me to go and get a vaccine? What do you want to tell them?
If you look at vaccination for people with cardiovascular disease or even uncontrolled hypertension, uncontrolled diabetes, there is no data to show that they have any higher risk than the other groups. They have the same risk as the other groups. And if you look at the effectiveness also, they have the same effectiveness. Only thing what you have to look into is patients who have heart disease, who are stable, not having any acute fever or breathlessness or acute decompensated heart failure, and not immediately after a heart attack, they can take the vaccine without any kind of worry or fear. If you look at the 20 comorbidities listed by the government of India for prioritizing individuals for vaccination, 50% of them, that is 10 out of the 20 are cardiovascular disease conditions. So that is the importance of cardiovascular disease patients to get vaccinated. So now above 45, everyone has been, from 1st of April has been started vaccinated. But before that, above 45, below 60, people with 20 comorbidities, and in them 10 were cardiovascular comorbidities. Only all the rest diseases came only in the other 10. So not only are the vaccines safe for people with heart disease, they are essential as they are at increased risk of severe complications from COVID-19.
All right, important points, both of them over there. Last question, really, and let me bring in Dr. Varun Kumar at that point. Dr. Kumar, a lot of people still don't get the difference between asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic. And also a common query that we get from people is that because they're asymptomatic, is it okay to be presumed that the severity of the disease is not going to be much? That means, will they get away from it? Will they recover sooner? Will they infect less people? Is what you're seeing more and more?
That's a wonderful question. Basically, if you look into the terms asymptomatic, because when you look into the virus infection, it enters the respiratory tract and enters the cells to cause some amount of changes in the cell. There is a phase where it is pre-symptomatic, where the virus attaches, develops some amount of inflammation at the local site. Say the patient can present with a common flu kind of symptom. They may not have a severe form of manifestation at the time of presentation. The other group is the virus just attaches without any causing inflammation. That we call it as an asymptomatic infection as such. Both are at high risk of transmitting the infection. The asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic, they are the most important carriers for the infection as such. When you look into the data, the asymptomatic, again 30 to 40% can develop a symptomatic infection at the later part. If they are pre-symptomatic, they should get the immediate attention of the caretakers, the doctors, or the nearest hospital as early as possible, because the earlier treatment has been found to have a better benefit on the long run. So the prevention of transmission and prevention of complication is the prime motto in treating a COVID-19 patient as such.
So 2 or 3 key points over here, especially if you have comorbidities and you're going in for vaccination, please do consult your doctor and discuss with him all your conditions before you go in for vaccination, and keep him in loop about your conditions as well. Keep yourself hydrated. That's been a great tip to come from Dr. Kumar over there. Also, when it comes to diabetes, you have to be careful, but also don't be wary because you actually need it the most. With hypertension, you also need it the most. So don't be wary if you have these conditions at all. Other than that, there's only so much you can do, which is just 3 things. Wear your mask, keep a social distance, avoid going out if it's absolutely not essential. And then there is one to really beat it all, which is get yourself vaccinated. We hope today's episode was hopeful and also helpful in all ways. Thanks for joining us.